So I get up, I do it first, and then it's done, and then I go through the other things that I'm going to suffer about, and I do those. And then I do inadvertently, throughout the rest of the day, things get done. And it's, it works out. So I put the most important stuff first, get that done first, and then I also understand that life doesn't always go according to plan, and so if I can't get everything on my to-do list done that day, that's all right. There's tomorrow, hopefully, or the next day. So I'm very lenient with myself, and I do give myself breaks, because otherwise it's too much. And I teach my students this as well. These are important conversations to have with them as well. I forgot how I worked that in last time. So the next major element to talk to them about is competing with themselves, not with other people. Because I think especially when kids are young, we have a very competitive society. All of our societies are very competitive. And I think that it's really difficult for students to understand what it is to be competitive and what that can look like. And if they happen to not be the best in English, they may not feel confident or comfortable, and that might impact their motivation to study. So when we help to teach them that the people that you compete with, the person to compete with is yourself, it helps to set a positive model of competition for them that encourages success in whatever endeavor they try to do. Because when you compete with yourself, you're just growing as a person. It's not like, oh, that person does like this, and I should be more like that. And I actually teach this skill because it's difficult to talk about. Because culturally, the idea of like different people competing is so important. I mean, look at the Olympics, you know? That's about competition between different people, and we're the best. We have like 5 gold medals and you have none. You know, to me, that's not positive competition. So I try to talk about positive competition. I was looking for this movie. And there are 2 movies that we have in the ETRC that I've used previously to teach about positive competition. The first one is Mogyla and the Bee. And what I like about this movie is that this is a young girl who is really skilled at spelling. She is just brilliant at spelling. But she comes from a neighborhood that is not fantastic, and a school that needs a lot more support than it really gets. And so she finds a tutor who's willing to work with her and develop her ability to spell. And one of the final scenes, you can tell she gets to the spelling bee, so I'm not killing any of what will happen in the movie. But one of the final scenes is that she's competing with this guy from another school in her district. And she gives away the answer. Like, she knows the spelling of this one word they ask, but she gives it away because she wants him to win. And then he gives away his answer. And he says, "What were you doing? Why? I know you know that spelling word. Why did you do that?" And she's like, "Well, because I want you to succeed. This is the last year you can be in this competition. You should win. You're so good." And he said, "No way. Because that would be cheating. Because I want to win myself. I don't want you to give me the competition. You know, because when I compete against you, I become better. Because I have to be better." And that's the idea that I want to communicate with students. You know, when I compete against someone who's very high, it forces me to become better. And I work to compete to become better myself. The other movie that this theme is prominent in is Soul Surfer. So we'll talk about Soul Surfer next Wednesday. I'll introduce a little bit about the movie then. But it's about a girl who is a competitive surfer, and she has her arm bitten off by a shark. You look traumatized already. But it doesn't stop her surfing, and there's a scene where she's back in the water, and the other surfers are kind of giving her better positions and trying to, fight for her because they're like, oh, she lost her arm, that's horrible. But in the end, her main rival, her main competitor, what was her name? Do you remember? Bethany is the name of the girl with her arm bitten off. Milena is the name of her competitor. Bethany, Milena treats her like a real competitor. Milena treats her as she treats every other person in the water with both arms and both legs. And so Bethany actually states in the movie that, I want to compete against her because she forces me to be the best that I can be. So that's the idea of positive competition, self-competition. And using people in a positive way when you're within the competition, not in a negative way, not in a way that is common where you say, oh gosh, they're so much better than me, oh, I can't do it, or I'll never be that good. You use it to force yourself to be better. Okay, finally, be a trustworthy person. Don't speak badly about others. That's just in general. I just find that to be helpful. I guess that's like a random aside. But it does work into the whole theme, especially with secondary and primary school students. Oftentimes, competition becomes also verbal. And so when people say things about each other, especially in secondary and elementary, they can hurt each other's feelings very badly. And so I just tell my students, I want to see this now. I want to see every day we're working on this kind of behavior, because this is the behavior that is going to take you far in life and maintain your integrity. And then finally, another quote by Ayn Rand, and this is the hallmark sign of a second rater is resentment of another's achievement. So I oftentimes have this up in my room because I want students to think about that. So do you know what a second rater is?
Not the first.
Not the first.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. It's not the first. But a second, any other guesses?
Loser.
A loser. Yeah, that's closer actually. So a person who is a second rater is a person who is not the best but is mean about it. So a person who's insecure and tries to make other people feel bad because they are insecure, that's a person who is second rate. They're not like high quality. That sounds really awkward. I don't like saying someone's high quality and someone's not high quality. But how am I going to define this then? I think the most important thing to understand about a second rater is it's someone who has potential, but they're not using the potential to be great because maybe they're insecure about something and they've never had the skills taught to them to be better. And so people who are insecure oftentimes try to make other people also feel insecure or bad about themselves because it makes them feel better. And so that's a person who is a second rater. So, and I mean that more or less describes the quote, right? So if you feel like you are resenting another person's achievement, that means you need to think about yourself, and you need to think about why you are resenting the other person's achievement, because there's an area for growth that you can do personally. That's how I use that, teaching them to recognize when they feel resentment about somebody else, that means there's something they personally need to work on about whatever it is they're feeling resentment about. Finally,
is it possible to say mediocrity or mediocracy? Because mediocrity knows nothing higher than itself.
No, because it knows nothing higher than itself, and they're not necessarily mediocre. It just means that they don't have the understanding that they too can be a first-rater. Everyone has the capacity to be a first-rate person. Everybody. But when we say mediocre, it means that they don't have that capacity. So a second-rater still has the capacity, they just haven't developed it yet because maybe they haven't been taught the skills on self-reflection and how to understand the way that they are being. But that was a great question, a great connection. Did you get mediocre from this one?
No, just I was thinking
it
appeared later. Sorry.
He made a connection. Okay, so great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. And that's sort of what one of the final two quotes I want to leave you with. And oftentimes when we have specific goals that we're working for in life, a lot of times people will tell us it's not possible. And it's just because they don't see that it's possible. So that's more or less what this is saying, that anything is possible. You just have to believe in what you feel and think is right in order to achieve those goals. For example, when I first started my profession, a lot of people, they label me as crazy. I'm the crazy one. Because I'm here, I'm there, I'm there, I'm there. I'm like everywhere doing what I love to do. Also, when I first started out with my goal of just living all over the world and learning about different cultures and also doing teacher training, at that time in the profession, this sort of thing didn't really exist. And so it didn't, like, I was trying to do something that wasn't even existing yet. So you can imagine how worried my father was. He was always like, when are you getting a real job? I'm like, Dad, I have a real job. I'm getting paid for this. And I'm loving what I'm doing. But many people oftentimes can't see the vision that you have or the vision that your students have. Sometimes you can't even see the vision that your students have. But by enabling them to critically think about their own vision and work towards it and come up with creative problem-solving solutions, etc., you can empower them to go and do things that we don't even know are possible. And that's who I want to be for people, because that's what I think is important for us. And so as a teacher, I mean, for me, this is like a main quote, because my main goal in life as a teacher is to empower other people to have an amazing life, whatever that means for them. So, and finally, thank you for listening. Any questions? But don't let life discourage you. Everyone who got where he is had to begin where he was. Right? So, to me, what that means is it's never too late. So if you have identified some goal or something that you want to accomplish in the future, start. You have time. 24 hours every day. Minus 12 for sleeping. No, maybe not 12, maybe 8 for sleeping. So questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, whatever. Anything. Yours are all like, no, we just want to go home, thanks. Okay, well, thank you again for coming. I always appreciate when you are here. We do have a Halloween party tonight. A little later, if you're not in a rush, we can, you're invited. When does it start? At 6.
At 6.
So in 15 minutes, we have a Halloween party. We're going to be painting pumpkins.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a question?
I don't know, just